Imperceptible Fundamentalisms, The Perfect Woman, and the Multiple Roles of Barbie. It's not a presentation against Barbie itself, but against what Barbie represents. For those who don't know, Barbie is being promoted recently since 1999 with the slogan, "We girls can do anything," referring to the potential of girls and women to develop their skills and abilities in any field they wish and want to work. But as we'll see during the talk, she's just an instrument of political and economical models that run under purely patriarchal operating logics. Barbie, I'm going to talk here of how Barbie embodies the woman of today, because everything that she represents is the exact reflect of what we women are asked to be by society. So I find this subject interesting because the Barbie doll is a toy, and as a toy, it configures our reality since we are little girls nowadays. My hypothesis is that there is a hidden inconsistency in the image of woman that feminism has in relation to that woman that the feminist movement of the second wave was wanted to construct. So I have done the presentation for an hour and a half, so I'll speed. I'll skip along. The interest I have in making a critical analysis of feminism is because I've noticed that the more goals we've accomplished and the more areas we've managed to enter as a collective, and the more glass ceilings we've managed to break, I feel like if the oxygen we breathe once we are out of those glass ceilings has become denser and denser, because every time I know that it seems to be getting easier to break them, but it's getting more difficult to breathe once we are out because of it. My research, I'm a political science student, so, and my specific topic of research is organizational structures based on the properties of nature's forms. So I study topologies and network topologies inspired in nature's forms, more specifically fractal geometry. So that's why I am going to support my hypothesis, the one I told you before, the image of the second wave, with what fractals are. I wonder who's heard anything about fractals or has any idea of fractals? Well, I'm going to rapidly tell you which are the most significant properties about them. Fractals, every image that I'm going to show you while I'll speak is a fractal. There are two main properties of fractals. First, self-similarity, and second, iteration. Imagine a tree. A tree has a trunk and branches, and each one of the branches has little branches and little branches. So self-similarity is that property of some forms of nature to make that a small part of it resemble the whole from where it came from. So we find these fractal forms in snowflake. This is the most famous, one of the most famous fractals of all times. It's also a mathematical construction, very interesting, but there's no time. Basically, a fractal is a phenomenon or object that repeats its global structure in smaller scales. And the other property fractals have is iteration, that it's passing from one part to another one, and to a smaller one, and to one even smaller. This is a simple construction of a snowflake. The term fractal was coined in 1975 by a Polish mathematician called Benoit Mandelbrot. He began to plot points on a complex plane. A complex plane is a plane where you can grab natural numbers, rational numbers, and even imaginary numbers like 4i or 6i plus 11. And he started to change the value for that constant c in this equation, and this was the gorgeous figure he found. For me, it is, no, for many mathematicians and for many people, this is the most complex, beautiful, and impressive figure in the whole mathematics history. Because when you zoom it and zoom it to infinity, you start to see patterns, repetition, self-similarity. This another computer zooming, and more specifically, we can find these two properties. They are easily to recognize in trees, in roots, in ferns. Look, this is a mini fern, and each mini part of it is also a mini fern. In clouds, in our circulatory system, in plant circulatory system, in our lungs, in lightning. Even when a lightning hits someone, sometimes they leave a mark, a scar, and it also has a fractal lightning shape. In the way rivers join together, and even in some vegetables, like this Romanesco broccoli. Now, why nature chose fractals to form its forms? The reason is quite logical. As living organisms, we need to take our nutrients and information and energy using the least amount of work possible. So if we take trees, for example, if trees would extend in Euclidean geometry shapes, Euclidean geometry is the geometry which we are used to. Triangles, squares, cubes. So if trees would have this way, the amount of work they would need to distribute energy and information and nutrients among all of its parts which would be much higher than the one they need if they use fractal forms. Because each big branch take nutrients and energy and info to smaller ones and to one even smaller, and that's it. Because they occupy the same area with less volume. You see? Same area with less volume. Now, let's make an analogy between how physical bodies such as trees distribute energy and information to all of them, of their parts, with how ideologies mute and expand. This is a syllogism I brought from my undergraduate thesis I'm writing right now. Human beings have always thought that we have a nature different from nature's nature. So that's why we've invented institutions with imaginary constructs like this one. Well, I'll show you later. Imaginary organizational structures that nowhere else in nature can be found. They never I don't know. They came from an imaginary world that took place in a weird neural exchange in the psyches of humans who played an active role in their configuration. But nowhere in nature you find organization with no interdependent hierarchies. So, but the truth is that being human parts of nature, we are nature. So we possess the same laws of nature itself. This means that the same laws that govern the world outside as humans govern us and our creations. Then the very forms of human inventions forms are nature's forms. We evolve as nature evolves. Nature makes process of natural selection, and we make process of cultural selection based on the properties of natural selection. That's why we choose what works for us and we dismiss what doesn't work for us. A way of exemplifying that ideologies mute in a fractal scale time is, can we see here, the fractal time of human technological progress. 10,000 years ago, we humans started to accumulate food because we discovered agriculture, and we accumulate also knowledge and became more specialized and could benefit of the work of those who were contemporary to us. Specialization meant that we no longer had to produce everything to ourselves, but someone else did it while, okay, I specialize in this and you in this, and then we exchange. 500 years ago, when printing was invented, we no longer benefit only of the work of those who were contemporary to us, but also from the ones of those who lived before. And in a least amount of time than the one that passed between 10,000 years and 500 years ago, cars were invented, so more or less 100 years. So distances seem to be reduced, and we spend, again, like when we are nomads, less time traveling from one place to another, so we could work in what then would come, the computer and internet and Walkmans, and we can see the faster and faster technological progress with Walkmans, because then came Discmans and iPods, and now we're talking about nanoscience healthcare, for example, to target medication to whatever specific part in the body we want them to reach, or teletransportation in the atomic level, or possibilities of invisibility. Every change, every important change that happens in the in humans culture or technological culture, each time is happening in a shorter time. So this is the way I have to exemplify how ideologies and how all that is related with humans evolve as we humans do, fractally. For me, it's just a logic inconsistency and an epistemological fallacy to imply that what has been created by fractal beings with fractal physical systems and fractal consciousness process and information exchange has found its own rules of evolution in in such a brief period of time that it just hasn't been allowed for a small change in the initial conditions to occur. That's why robots don't have consciousness, because they exist from such a brief period of time since they were invented that it just hasn't been possible for them to evolve in a different way as we do. Okay, now feminism. Okay, what does this have to do with feminism? For this, I'll use a sort of a graphic fractal I made, and it's called patriarchy tree. In the roots of our tree, we have biological reasons like men muscle strength, or historical economical reasons related with territory, worldviews, the arisal of the private property, and we have also some branches that have been permeated by patriarchy, like for example the traditional nuclear family, or the human sciences like law and its domination premises, or political science, for example. My field, political science, has paradigms, theories, and models based in typical male-female power relations and male-male traditional models of fight and confrontation. So, and we also have the social space, like fashion and consumerism and all this kind of behavior typified by the economical and political ideology that emphasizes competition in a world where supremacy is exalted as a value. Art also, because with only a few historical exceptions, women's body has been the only one that has always been painted, sculpted, exposed or hidden like in theater a few centuries ago. We also have worldviews that arose in patriarchist times to oppose its modus operandi, like Marxism and its class exploitation, or some kinds of socialism, and of course, feminism. That's how I exemplify that feminism is an iteration of patriarchy, and the feminist image of woman is likewise an iteration of patriarchy's image of woman. Because having emerged in opposition to it, it had as its roots patriarchy itself. It's just that we haven't noticed yet as a collective. That's why, since the second wave, the woman was shaping up to increase her role and importance in places where she was neglected before, and it was only possible to think a man. Politically, sexually, economically, socially, academically, but we are never capable, we haven't been really capable of sharing, transferring, dissociating, or exchanging the role that patriarchy structure previously defined for us with how we really conceive ourselves if we would live in a bubble that would have not been permeated by patriarchy. This is just an analogy. This non-structural change, for me, it's just an analogy between just a change of colors in computer-generated fractals. So now, in the few minutes I have, I'm going to talk rapidly about the Barbie doll. Why this supposedly pro-feminist doll is nothing more but an iteration of patriarchy. We must first start by saying that the Barbie doll is perfect. She's physically attractive. She fits into the socialized prototype of beauty. In fact, she dictates it. She has had many jobs, 125 specifically. She loves animals, spends time with her family. She's an active member of the consumer society. She is independent, yet has a stable relationship, and despite it, she has no active sex life. So she's patriarchy's perfection embodiment.